Hi everybody, hope everyone's well. It's great that we're back fishing matches again. For me, this coming Sunday is going to be my first match back and I'm absolutely buzzed about it, very excited. Before I go fishing on Portumna, it's on the River Shannon, the bait I won't be caught without is redworm. So anyone coming to Ireland or the UK, all over Europe, one of the favourite baits for bream, skimmers, hybrids is redworms. So I just want to run you through how I go about collecting it. So let's start. A few of the tools you're going to need. A good cat, optional, no buckets. What I like to do is go and bring a few buckets so I can collect them at the pit and then bring them home and sort them out. So they're Wellingtons. Made a little bit of rain here, so I expect it to be a bit mucky, so Wellingtons are very important. Gloves, optional, but highly recommended you bring gloves. You don't want to be sticking your hands in there. So gloves and a small trowel for collecting them. One of the things you'll notice when I bring you up there is I don't be picking them out singly. I like to scoop in what I can and sort them later. Also, a bit of help, cheap labour, that's handy as well. I have my man here on the other side of the camera that's going to come with me. So let's go up to the pit and I'll show you how it goes. Welcome to my pit. It's a pit I've used for the last 15 to 20 years. It's been really good to me. I have a great relationship with the farmer here, and I look after him every Christmas and that, which I think is important, but I have no problem coming in here at any time to pick some worm. First thing you need to do when you find a pit is gain a relationship with the farmer. Ask permission. The last thing you want to do is have him find you mucking around his horse manure pit. It's not going to go down too well. So a bit of manners, asking permission goes a long way. So this pit is actually very good today because, as you can see over here, this manure here, still a lot of straw in it. It's manure, it's very fresh manure. Never find that much good at all. In fact, I don't see any worms in that. And down this end, it's a lot older stuff, it's a lot finer. So there's the odd worm. I find this very good for very small worms, the real broken down stuff that's nearly gone into soil. Okay, and right in the middle, obviously, you have the medium kind of stuff, bit of straw in it, it's wetter, and for some reason that seems to hold the highest concentration of worms. So how I like to go about collecting them is pretty simple. I scrape off the top layer with the trowel, okay, until I start seeing a few worms. Here we go. And then I dig down into it. Now, there you go. Lots of worms there in that. So you can see lots of worms. If I were to pick out them worms singly, it would take absolutely forever. And time is of the essence. Get them picked, I'll sort them out when I get home. So when I find a spot that's high concentration of worms, it's as simple as just filling the buckets. So once I have enough buckets filled, depending on the amount of worms I want, if I'm going to a festival and I'm looking after some other anglers, I like to come up here a few times before a festival, bring buckets home, get them sorted, and that. For the likes of Sunday, all I want is for hookers, so one bucket is sufficient, 1 or 2 buckets. So now that I'm here, suppose I'm here, I'm going to fill 2 buckets. So once I've them filled, I'm heading back to the house where I'm going to show you how I go about sorting through them, and, which is very important, how to store them. So join me back there in a few minutes. So here we are back at the house, or to be more specific, in the polytunnel. Not that you need a polytunnel for sorting worms or anything, but it's just raining outside, so I'll do it in here, and there's also good light. So as you can see, on the journey home, no more than 6-7 minutes, there's very few worms left in the top layers of the bucket. So you can do this 2 ways. What happens is the worms, when they see the light, they go down. So you can scrape off the top of the bucket and leave it. To speed up the process, what I do is I've made kind of a worm box here out of a bit of ply, and when I get home, I pour in the muck into the buckets or into the box, spread it around. If you come in close here, you can see loads of worms. So spread that out evenly, break up any lumps, and basically leave it for an hour. So what happens in that hour, obviously the worms will go down in the soil away from the light. I'll come back in an hour and I'll scrape off the top couple of inches, throw them in there for my good wife for her gardening, and perfect fertilizer. So I keep doing that until I'm left with a very, very high concentration of worms. I don't want them raw, because if you leave them raw and try and store them raw, they'll sweat and they'll end up dying. So we'll go through that in the next little bit. So we're back again. Right, I've left these possibly an hour and a half. In that time I've come out and I've scraped the top off the worms twice. So it's really reduced now. So what I have is a high concentration of worms. See that? So I don't really want it any more concentrated than that. Now, obviously, if we're going to the festivals or going to the match on Sunday, what I like to do is bag up the worms. So this is basically a pillowcase. Cheap pillowcases you buy. Now, one thing I can't stress is the cheaper the pillowcase, the less tight the weave is in it. So obviously I don't want to go spending loads of money on pillowcases, so what I do is I double bag them. If you don't do that, what you'll find is at night time, when it's dark, the worms will actually creep out through this, the smaller worms, and you'll be left with a load of worms creeping across the floor. So when I'm doing it, I will double bag them up, just 2 old pillowcases. Lots of angers out there have my pillowcases. You all know who you are, don't worry. Long road, I'll come across you again. So I seem to be ever buying pillowcases. So what I like to do is just bag them up. So to have them bagged up, you can imagine in 2 different bags. One side there. Give them a good twist, and I fold them over and store them like that, or tie a bit of insulation tape around them, and that's my worms stored. So that's how I go about bringing them to a festival. That I'll bring them in pillowcases. I don't really want to be going picking worms every time I want to go fishing or go to a match, so I like to have a storage supply at home. What I do is when I come back from the match, whatever worms I've left, if you look here, it's a simple bin. So to keep the worms from escaping, what I have is an old pair of tights. These are actually very high weave in them, so the worms cannot escape, and I just put it over the top. And if you look here, I just have manure in there, and I throw the worms in on top of that. To keep them fed, what I like to do is cut a melon in half, one of the yellow watermelons, scoop out all the inside of the watermelon, all the gooky stuff, throw that out to the birds. So I'm left with the melon. I just kind of bury that a little bit in the manure and leave it. Now, it will take possibly a week or 2 before that will start to deteriorate and break down and go rotten, and then worms will not touch it until it starts rotting. But once they start eating it, they will clean every little bit out of it. But what it's good for me is when I come to go to a fish for a match, I just lift up the melon, and generally there's a big ball of worms underneath it, so there's no picking, and I can just throw them into a bait box. So there you have it. That's how I go about picking my worms. Bet you never thought picking worms is so interesting. So if you like the video, give it a bit of a share, and hope to see you all on the bank. It's great to be back.